Hello, Michelle. Hello, Catherine. Hi, Shelly. How's everybody doing? Sorry, of course, just when I start a presentation, I like swallow water the wrong way. Ed Malcolm, we'll probably just, you know what, if you need to refill a coffee or do anything like that, now would be an okay time to go ahead and do that. We'll probably wait 2 or 3 minutes for anyone who's kind of late entering to come on now. Hi, Ed. How you doing? Look at that beard. Holy cow. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, working on it. COVID beard.
It's a good one.
Thanks.
I haven't had a coffee in like, I've had coffee in 8 weeks, but I haven't actually gone and got a coffee and treated myself this morning with the contactless pickup at Beamers, and whew, it's good. We are going to fly through this presentation, let me tell you. Ed, I was just saying, we'll probably just wait a few minutes for the latecomers to come on. There were 11 registered. We've received one notification of someone who can't attend, and that is pretty common with a free event. We always expect, even with a pay event, to have no Tim Hortons. Catherine, they're like, I would have to walk for miles to get to Tim Hortons here. They're not on every corner like they are in Nova Scotia, that's for sure. Yeah, so with a pay event, for example, even like the Banff Marathon, we expect a 25% no-show rate on race day or on, you know, an event like this. With a free event, we can expect at least a 50% no-show rate for sure. So, yeah. When we're actually doing the presentation, I'll ask you guys to keep your video on if you don't mind. The reason for that is I can see when you're kind of are giving me a puzzled look because you don't understand, or I can see if you're, you know, nodding, which means you agree with me, or you're or you've kind of checked out and you're doing something else, which means that I've droned on for entirely too long. And so with that, I'll be able to have a more, it just helps me as a presenter to be able to read your facial expressions and what's going on in the background. Yeah, if you do feel like you have to take a call or whatever in the middle, I totally understand that as well. You know, we're all homeschooling and parenting and doing everything else at the same time. So I totally get that as well. And we're going to play a little bit with sound this morning in a few different ways. We're going to play with lighting as well. I have lighting turned on right now, and I'll give you some demos of what's different as I experiment with different things. So, and walk you through this. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. All right. Well, it looks like we have our core group for today, so that's great. I'd like to take a second. I'd like to introduce Jackie Larouche. She's been with Carmella for more than 2 years now, and she's one of our strongest. She doesn't like it when I say she's our strongest copywriter, but she absolutely is. She's also been doing a fair amount of website work and creative work and motion graphics, and her and I work on all of the SEO stuff together. We're a pretty small team here, and we all get to kind of play in a lot of different arenas, but I would say that each of the staff have their own specialties. So, for example, Jackie's would be that she has a split personality, and she could write like a realtor, or write like a, I don't know, a foodie, right? So very, very different. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to start the presentation.
Just while Steph's starting her presentation, I'll just let you guys know that there is a chat room available. So if you have any questions during the presentation, I'll be in the chat to answer any of your questions that you might have.
Now, am I sharing my screen that has the masterclass slide on it, or the masterclass slide with my notes?
You're good.
I'm good. Perfect. Okay. So today what we're going to talk about is how to sell on Zoom and how to increase your sales. Okay, originally this was set up to be the video strategy session. So we were looking at basically how to drive a 10-to-1 ROI from your video. But we heard from our clients in our community that a sales and video presentation right now is more relevant. Okay, and I'm gonna give you the Coles notes from the 10-to-1 video strategy session. And that is that your videos without any KPIs, key performance indicators, or distribution strategies, they're not going to translate into sales. So just having a video, it's, you know, this is a bit of a spoiler alert for anyone who does tune into our future presentations on video strategy. But again, just a little bit of as I said, a spoiler alert, but your video without a distribution strategy isn't going to translate into sales. And so with that particular presentation, we would walk you through all the pieces to make that happen. We will do the video strategy masterclasses again. It's just, I think we need to make sure that as we plan, right, we also have plan number A, B, C, D, and plan 17 in the funnel and ready to go. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about Zoom. Zoom is where the magic happens these days. Selling online is really the only way to keep the ball rolling for some businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. We don't know what the future looks like. We have some speculations on what the future is going to look like, but this is not the typical sales presentation, I promise. Okay. First thing, Jackie just mentioned, there's a chat feature. So someone today is going to get either digital audit review or 30 days worth of social media content. And you will get to choose which one you would prefer, okay? And the way we are going to award this is based on your engagement in this presentation or your engagement in social media during the presentation. So you have two different options. You can go on to your social media and make sure you're tagging Carmella Social during the presentation as well as engaging here. Okay, and you will be rewarded for doing so. So could we just take a few moments, since we're a small group, and go around, and could each of you introduce yourselves, as well as let me know maybe a little bit more about your business, what you do, and that way I can really make sure that I frame the presentation today around your needs. So in my order here, what I have is I have Shelley, Ed, Jackie will skip yourself, if that's okay, Catherine, and Michelle, but it's not Michelle. So maybe if we could start with you, Shelley, if you're okay to go ahead and unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about you.
Hi.
No problem.
Thank you for the masterclass. My name is Nicolette, and I work at Booker Custom Welding, and I usually use Michelle's email address. That's why I chose Michelle. We started to get into more like online marketing with Evelyn and I in the last a little bit less than a year. And we started Facebook and social media. We launched a website last year. So we're just trying to learn as much as possible and then try to do as much as we can on our own. And I was really excited to see this masterclass because our next step in our marketing plan was to create some videos, and then now we're just trying to learn about that a little bit more before we jump in and do something.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicolette. Shelley.
Hi. Perfect. So I work here downtown Canmore at Evolution. And so I was really interested in this because right now we're trying to take our social media and some of our web content in the direction of doing recipe videos and then just informational, because I feel like there's so much product knowledge that's interesting and the customers are really engaging. So we're just going to try and capture that. And yeah, we've done a little bit so far, but it'd be much more advantageous if we had it more targeted, or we could figure out a way to make it a lot more engaging and to include it maybe down the line in not just our social media, but our retail space. And yeah, I don't know. And then there's a few other marketing plans. And I feel like when we're going to start selling business to business, it's much easier to demonstrate certain aspects with a video. It's any kind of how-to is much easier when there's a video involved.
Okay. Ed.
I'm good friends with Stephanie's dad, Joey, so that's how I got connected, although I've known Stephanie for a number of years as well, 3.0, but I have a number of projects on the go, and probably the most relevant ones for this is my health and wellness website, Tuja Wellness, as we're rolling out a new wellness program, and then working on a golf course consulting business as well, so it's probably relevant for that. And then also have my student associate working on just analyzing this whole online environment that we're in and seeing what things are going to stick and the revenue models and all that sort of stuff. So there's those are just a sampling of things I'm involved in.
Okay. Awesome. Catherine.
Okay, hi, I'm Catherine Karpinski. I have been in the field of behavior analysis for 14 years. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and all the clinics are closed. I have experience in autism clinics, in schools, in home setting, and my field is rapidly changing. There's been massive layoffs in my industry, and I've been tinkering with the idea of developing my own coaching site and my own coaching business for several years. And I'm like, I should really seize this opportunity. Parents still need as much help as possible. I think the target demographic I'm going for is parents of older children as well as young adults who need coaching and motivation assistance in order to be successful in this new paradigm. So I'd be working with people with whether it's ADHD, autism spectrum, anxiety, or other executive functioning challenges. And I have a lot of the practical real world knowledge. I've done social media outreach for companies such as A Change in Trajectory and Eco-Friend World. And now I'm looking at doing it for myself. And as I'm writing scripts and I'm doing research and I'm putting together business plans, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need to figure out some marketing strategies as well. So this is just another arrow in the quiver.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you guys is, well, the idea of understanding how to sell is important. What you need is actual practical and tactical tips on how to get your videos up, how to create them, and then maybe a little bit on distribution. Does that, yeah, okay. So Jackie, I'm going to do the first part of this presentation. I don't know if you had a chance to see the slides or not, but I'm going to cover lighting and sound and a few of these other things. Do you want to go ahead and dig out your notes from the tips and tricks that you've done before on how to create good videos using your iPhone? And maybe what we'll do is we'll do the first little bit of the Zoom selling, But I think that it's probably more relevant for everybody if we just take a complete 180-degree pivot and give them something that they can use right now. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, for sure. I'll dig
Okay.
them up while you're having your
Okay.
talk here.
Thanks. Nothing like putting somebody right on the spot. Hey. So okay. All right. We're gonna keep. I don't know where my second screen went here. Hang on one second. Give me just 1 second, everybody. We're just getting a second screen going. There we go. Share desktop and play. Okay, so let's keep going. Whoop, we already did that. So I'm Stephanie O'Brien. I think I know most of you. I came to the Bow Valley in 1993. I like to say that I never really left. I love what I do, and therefore it doesn't really feel like work. And I try to instill the same sort of feeling in terms of flexibility and things like that with my teammates that I get to work with on a daily basis as well. Why I really am drawn, or have always been drawn, to a social connection and to social media is this concept of creating connections and the ability to use those connections for leverage. So not necessarily just for myself, but how do you see connections between business A and business B? What do those connections, what are they? How do they exist? And how can both businesses benefit from some sort of, whether it's a partnership or it's relying on each other for some tactical, strategic alliances. But again, you know, what does that actually look like? The number one thing that Carmella really brings to the picture is I want to win. I want to win. And I want to win not just for myself. I want to win for my clients. I want to win for each of you. I want to give you the absolute best experience that you can possibly have right here, right now, today, as if tomorrow doesn't exist. So I try to bring that into our corporate culture, try to have all of our staff live that on a daily basis. So Carmella is actually a combination of my two daughters' names, Carmen and Bella. And while I did incorporate, you know, in 2007, which was a long time ago, you know, it was under a very different business model, and I didn't form this business until about 5 years ago. So we've had great success. We have a team of 8. Actually, it's more like I haven't laid anybody off, but we basically are not still working with our contractors. So I would say we're a core team of 6 at this time. And yeah, we're still going to be here when this is all done, which is great. We've got 10 different strategies that we have executed for the past 8 weeks in trying to bring in new sales, because we lost about 60% of our clients, as well as just trying to make sure that we're delivering day by day for our current clients. And yeah, if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to dig in further. So let's talk about selling on Zoom. I want you to look your best, but by looking your best, it's really important, and you will also feel your best too. So how can you look your best on Zoom? There's a couple tricks that I'm going to actually teach you here. There's lots of videos online about how to look your best, but there are some things that I can just help you adjust so that suddenly you're like, oh wow, I do look better. So I have about 6 steps that we're going to work through. So it's really the 6 steps to look your best on Zoom. Before you start, I want you to go through all of the basic functions and advanced functions in Zoom. So log into your Zoom account, or if you're using WebEx or whatever the platform is, and there's a bunch of customizable features that you can use in there. And the most important thing is to set it up. So for instance, I set it up so that every time you come in, this is automatically recording. I set it up so that every time you come in, your video and audio are automatically on mute. But I want my participants to be able to share their audio and share their video. When I'm recording, I want to be able to record what's called the speaker basically the speaker image, so that when I am talking to you, you know, I am what is called a spotlight, right? So I'm the spotlight, versus I could spotlight Jackie. So I'm going to spotlight Jackie now. So you can see how on your screen, who you see is not necessarily just who's speaking. Okay, so there's some features there you can set up as well, but that's really important. Oh, pants. So part of looking your best is making the effort to actually get dressed, and it's pants or it's skirts or whatever it might be. If you are, you know, if you're teaching a yoga class, you're probably not putting jeans on, but you might still want to look good. You might want to do your hair. You might want to make sure that your people that you're actually conversing with feel like you made an effort. Okay, none of us have had a haircut in God knows how long, right? At least 8 weeks. So I know we're maybe not looking as we would as if we just come from the salon, but again, make that effort. It really makes a difference. Video. So just like I asked you to leave your video on, so when we're chatting, ask your participants to do the same. It helps the presenter significantly, okay? The engagement is a big help. It also allows me to read what you are thinking and to kind of see what you're looking at. I can see nuances. I read body language. Are people falling asleep? Are people asleep? Okay. All right, let's play with some angles. So I want everybody, hopefully, if you're on a laptop, I just want you to take a few seconds, pull your computer in closer to you and tilt your screen just up a little bit. So just like we learned when we started to take selfies, okay, this is not the best camera angle at all for most people. So what you want to do is now push your computer back from you a little bit, and we want to tilt the screen down. I have two screens that I'm looking at. So I have basically a desktop that I'm presenting from, and then I have my Zoom on this screen here. And I actually have a set of lights that I'm going to show you as well, set up behind that so that I don't have a dark half of my face. I have two windows in my office, and most of the time I spend kind of squinting trying to see, because if I position my office the other way, then I have light on my screen and I can't see my screen that way. So at least this way I can manage, okay? So again, when you are presenting, let your attendees know that, yes, this is where I'm looking when I'm talking directly to you. This is where I'm looking when I'm looking at my presentation. But you have the ability to kind of play with this angle. Now, the next one you can do is you can play with the height, right? So I have a electronic, so I can move my table way down and really angle it up for that particular look. But again, you start getting far away from my screen. I would much rather be kind of, you know, in a place where I can look directly at you. I feel like I'm connected with you. And the other thing too is the ability to make that eye-to-eye connection. So there's a huge amount of trust that is gained by being able to look into somebody's eyes. And I don't know if you've noticed this when we're walking down the street or when you're having a Zoom chat, but there's an awful lot of eye-to-eye contact that is not happening, okay? And it's very important to still be having that eye-to-eye contact with your viewers. It makes a difference for either sales or for a whole bunch of different things. So again, if you're seated, you want to be seated at a level that your camera is kind of almost eye to eye with you. Okay, so you're looking directly into that camera. And then your body position as well. Like we want to make sure we're sitting up with our shoulders back. We don't kind of want to just be leaning forward onto our computers, okay? So, and that's, again, if you're an attendee, oh, we have someone else joining us. I don't know if Jackie, I can let Kathy in. Here we go. So I forgot what I was saying, but anyway, camera angles, you get what I'm saying here. Okay, let's talk about lighting. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this light off so you can see the difference, and then we'll talk a little bit about lighting as well. So this would be the natural light in my office without any lighting at all. If you are shooting videos, so Shelly, you mentioned at Evolution that you wanted to be doing some recipe videos. We did use your white balsamic in the Makin' Tonight show, and that went really, really well. But lighting is, it's pretty cheap, it's easy to use, and it makes a huge difference, okay? So when you have your lights, I'm just gonna turn them back on. Again, you can see it makes a significant difference in the professionalism if I was shooting a YouTube video, for example, of this video. If you guys are interested in YouTube, I would have our, basically the girl who's the most experienced on YouTube. She has about 12,000 followers on her YouTube channel, and I'm happy to put together another presentation for you about how to optimize your YouTube channel and how to do that. We're not gonna cover that right now. With the lights that I'm using right now, I have the ability to turn them completely yellow or completely white or 50%. And it just kind of depends on what look I'm going for. Women like to be lit front on, okay? Whereas men, this would be you, Ed, you like to be lit slightly like kind of side on. So I would put this, I would turn it up and I would put it a little bit on the side. It kind of gives you a little bit more shadows across the face. And for whatever reason, guys like to be lit side on, ladies like to be lit front on. This light I have turned on to about 50% power. That is mostly because if I turned it on to 70% or even 100, well, I can show you what happens, but I won't be able to see anything. I'll be quite blinded. And so the 50% is kind of, so I've picked, 50% in terms of intensity and then 50% in terms of yellow and white lighting. Any questions on that?
Is that a setting within Zoom? Sorry.
I'm just gonna, it's actually a light. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna unplug the presentation and I will just show you. Give me 1 second.
I'll show you mine as well. Hold on, I just have to. So
Yeah.
I just have this guy.
Hang on, Jackie, let me pin your video so they can see you. 1 second. Where's my mouse?
I can see her.
Okay.
You guys can see me, all of you? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is the one that I have. It just is like a little clip. There's like a dimmer switch here. The battery doesn't last very long, so I have to have it plugged in all the time, but essentially it's a selfie light for your cell phone. I think it was like $10, maybe $5 from Amazon. My bridesmaid actually got it for me for my wedding, but like this is the first setting, that's the second setting, and then that's the third setting. And if you look at me now, as opposed to if I put the light up, I'm just a little bit more lit and it takes away the shadows. I have like 2 windows in front of me, so this little light is good enough for me, but there's a ton on Amazon that are super cheap, honestly.
So it just clicks on the top of your computer?
My computer is weird. It has like it's not flat, it has a rounded back, so I just have to tape it on, but if you had like a flat back, like a laptop or something, it would just clip right on.
Okay.
The clip is, I don't know if you can see the clip, it's pretty small. Like it barely clips onto my fingers. So it's made for a cell phone, but most of the ones on Amazon come with a tripod.
Okay, thanks.
Some of them have fans too. So like if they're like selfie stick lights that have, you can buy them with a fan to like blow your hair back at the same time if you're wanting to have that effect. Anyway, we don't have any with the fans, but we probably should think about it. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is the light that we would use if we were, for example, shooting like testimonials, client testimonials. And
you just
I'll
need
just
to,
go ahead.
to turn your video back to you, Steph.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, everybody.
I'm highlighted.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the light. Okay, we'll unplug the sound as well because we'll play the sound next. Okay, and this is off. This is on. This is white. This is yellow. this is kind of what I picked, middle. And that is 100%. And that's kind of like, you can kind of see how it gets brighter, right? So here you go. So that's the, and I just set that up for this presentation. Jackie's been asking me to do this for about 8 weeks. And I finally decided that today was the day that I was going to go ahead and actually set that up for everybody.
I will, while Steph is continuing, I'll go ahead and drop some links in the chat for some inexpensive lighting options from Amazon, just so you can have a look and know what those options are.
Thanks, Jackie. Just give me 1 second. I'm getting the second screen plugged in again. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and then I'll restart the presentation. All right, here we are, lighting. So we've talked about lighting. Okay, let's talk about sound. So, how do I sound right now? Is it a little bit echoey? Sounds not too bad, right? It's okay. We have a mic as well, like basically a mic that we would use for podcasts. But the way that would work is I would have to plug that into an adapter into my MacBook, and then plug my headphone jack into the bottom of the mic so that I could hear what everybody else is still saying. And it seems like a lot of extra steps. I have tested it, and I feel like that simply by having this mic plugged in, the sound is still pretty good. Okay, so would you agree that you get a better sound with the headphones in versus, yep, Catherine's going to get her, yeah, exactly, there we go. But would you agree that the sound is slightly clearer and less echoey with the headphones in versus not? Or not a huge difference at all? It's good. Okay, perfect. Background. So I left this up. My background is incredibly distracting. Okay, my background is not at all what you should be doing. I should have a virtual background up if I'm going to be doing Zoom, basically masterclasses or webinars or whatever from my office. You want to make sure as well that if you have any whiteboards, that you don't have any sensitive information like passwords or anything like that written on those whiteboards. You want to make sure that everyone who is at your home working with you also is wearing pants. Or if you have kids that are running around, the virtual background is kind of nice because, you know, I can quickly put myself on mute, tell my kids that, you know, I can't help them right now because I'm doing something, and then come back to the chat. But you know, so Shelley, I would be very curious as to where you're shooting from, right? So over your left shoulder, I see a bottle of cleaner. And yep.
It's the back storeroom.
Awesome. So I probably would do some product placement a little bit, throw one fancy bottle in with the Macon Tonight show that we're doing, which is a cooking show. One of the things that we're finding is in order, because I have, you know, 50, 60, 70 participants on, we are asking the chefs to put, we basically do a cutting board cam, and I've asked the chefs to put a bottle of alcohol or a lemon or a water bottle or whatever it might be on the cutting board so that I can find that video quickly. On Zoom, what happens is it reorganizes the participants based on who's talking or who's been participating, and then sometimes the chefs, their phone will die, so they will get booted out and then have to get re-added. And it's been interesting to try to, you know, find that. So I would say, you know, Shelley, for you, making sure that instead of having the bottle of cleaner behind you, you might want to have a, you know, a little bit of you know, a display, just again, that brand recognition. Yeah. So Ed, for you, you could have a virtual background that has your logo on it.
Yeah.
right? I think
Yep.
that would be very important. Nicolette, the same with you. Like, I know a little bit about bow core welding, but you know, maybe there's some sort of graphic or something that could be behind you.
Yes,
Jackie has a
logo was a very good
custom.
idea.
Oh, say
Sorry.
it again. Sorry. Yeah.
The virtual background with the logo was a very good idea because I was thinking, oh my
Yeah.
God, can I have?
Mm-hmm. What about, you can also use a video. So for instance, Ed, I know you're actively shooting some video. Maybe you want to just add a little bit of a video of you walking down a trail to your background. It is distracting, absolutely, but it is a good conversation piece as well. Okay? Okay. And Catherine, I'm not ignoring you. I just, I feel like as a behavior analyst, you probably need to, like, I don't know, have a white background. Like, I'm not, maybe your logo, but again, nothing too fancy there. So, okay. Any questions about Zoom? So basically the nuances of selling over Zoom or the nuances of doing presentations over Zoom. I'm doing shorter presentations. I'm expecting that we're going to have more distractions, not less distractions. So I have 6 kind of points for success that I want to share with you now. Okay, so the first one is to keep it brief. I want to set expectations for time. This presentation will end at 12 noon today. However, we've kept 15 minutes available for questions that we can then go over anything more that you might want to discuss. Stay on topic. So while we're discussing, you know, how to sell on Zoom, I'm not necessarily going to go into how to set up a YouTube channel, okay? Make it relevant. That was the first thing I did. As I went through, I asked each of you kind of your business models. I took a guess on what types of videos you're wanting to create, as well as who your ideal customer is, okay? So I'm trying to make this relevant for you. Make it timely. So is the information I'm providing, is it accurate? Is it right now? Is it relevant right now? And is it solving a need that you have in your business right now? And based on what you told me, I think it is. 5th, make it memorable. So I always like to say that social media needs to be more than just a picture with an emoji, okay? But it's really important that the videos you create are memorable because people won't hesitate. If you don't catch them, as Jackie's going to tell you, in the first few seconds of that video, you're going to lose them. And it's really important in terms of a YouTube ranking to basically keep them until the end. And lastly, number 6, don't forget your why. Don't forget to tell your audience why you do what you do. I personally have been Simon Sinek to death. You know, the power of why. And so I don't really want to go into all of that, but I do think it's important. You know, when we first started the presentation, I told you why I love, you know, what I do and why I'm passionate about what I do. And I think that's really important for your followers to know as well. So Ed, why do you get involved in the projects you get involved in? What draws you to all of those very different things that you have had in your working history and in your career? Okay, so those are the 6. 1, keep it brief, stay on topic, make it relevant, make it timely, make it memorable, and don't forget your why. Okay? I'm going to just go a little bit further here and then we'll transition over to Jackie with some actual tips and tricks you can use right now for the last 20 minutes, okay? So I want to ask you, why do people buy?
It can be emotion or a need.
Yep, absolutely. Could be a planned purchase, but it definitely, emotion plays into it for sure. So how do we sell?
Appeal to those same senses.
I mean, that would be the idea, right? That's what we should be doing. This whole concept of sales power and control, I don't buy into that at all. And I just thought, you know, of all the research that I've done on sales and selling techniques, I thought I wanted to bring this up. If you have someone in your store, you know, it's not about power and control at all. And I don't believe in that at all. Okay, so there's a few things that we need before we can sell, okay? We need to know our audience. So one of the things that I love to do is when somebody reaches out for a meeting with me and they don't have a business email address. For instance, I can't, like Shelly, if you emailed me from your personal email address and not from your Evolution email address, I wouldn't have known who you were. However, I can take your email address, I can drop it into the search navigation of Google and then search that way. So I take your email address, I put it into the search bar at the top of Google, and then I hit search. And what I get generally is your Facebook profile, any other accounts that you've set up, as well as I can generally figure out what business you're in. And people that are trying to keep it from me as to what business they're in, it's a nice little hack to try to figure out, you know, who you're actually talking to. And then I try to create a connection. So I want to find something personal and do something memorable. Okay. This is how I sell, and this is quite successful. I would say I generally have about an 85 to 90% close rate. I do pre-qualify my my ideal client in terms of if somebody comes in, I try to figure out what they might be looking for before I actually ever sort of even have the first conversation with them. So what you need to understand is this formula. So has anyone seen this before? Okay. Does anyone use something similar? Okay. So what the D stands for is dissatisfaction. Then times V, which is vision, plus your F, which is first steps. And those things all together have to be more than your resistance to change. Okay, and I'm going to explain each of those. So the dissatisfaction, for instance, as I am learning about your business, I want to try to find places where we might be able to make a difference, whether it's in sales or in marketing or in a personal connection that I can make for you. What are we trying to create? How are we creating it? And how are we making it relevant for the ideal client? So dissatisfaction. I use also calibrated sales questions to ask for creating dissatisfaction. So one of them is, are you wanting to make a change right now? What is the objective? What are we trying to accomplish here? What do you want more of? What about that is important to you? You know, what was important to you when you decided to contact us? And I try to do what's called a baker's tally or a baker's dozen. So I want to ask 5 questions before I start to say, it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like. We are all guilty of selling the vision too early. Okay, so that's the number 1 thing here. Don't sell the vision too early. We all do this. Okay, I want you to help them understand what value they are going to get out of it. How some of the questions that they are asking themselves, the questions that your ideal client, for example, if I walk, let's pick Catherine. If I walk into Catherine's virtual office, you know, I want to know what value am I going to get out of this? I want to know how much time is it going to take? And I want to know how much is it going to cost? Those are my barriers to entry. Okay. I don't really know what I'm getting in for. I know I need help. But I need to know those 3 things. The first steps, okay? So these are always, you want to outline your first steps, okay? You want to make sure that the participant or the client or the customer, that they know what to do next. At Evolution, it's pretty obvious, right? You come in, you taste, you select, you bring it to the counter, and you purchase. It's probably a little bit different now, right? But it might not be clear. So at Tuja Wellness, how do I know what my next steps are? I go to your website, I digest some content, I see a challenge, I sign up for the challenge, what are my next steps, right? So what does that look like? R is your resistance to change. So the person needs to have enough dissatisfaction, enough D in their life to want R, okay? For anyone who's selling a service, or for Carmella, like for us, the D is generally it's time and it's interest. So our ideal client is short on time, and time is the most precious commodity. And they don't really have the interest on understanding how to use Instagram stories to drive sales, for example. Okay, so that would be the next one. I'm gonna pause right here and tell you that I'm happy to continue with this, but I think it might be more relevant for you if I cut now to Jackie and we give you specific tips and tricks on how to film using your phone. Can I please get I think that's what Jackie's kind of ready to go with. Can I get a yes or a no from each of you, or a vote one way or the other? Shelley wants to go to tips and tricks. Catherine, what do you want to do? Just wait for Catherine. I think she's going to type it in the chat, so Jackie, you'll have to let me know.
She says
Ed,
tips and tricks.
Tips and tricks. Ed, what do you want to do? Tips and tricks. And Nicolette, tips and tricks. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens. We're going to hand it over to Jackie. This is 100% unplanned pivot. So I will stop sharing my screen. And Jackie, I will now take over with the questions and the chat. And yeah, we'll keep going.
Perfect. I am sharing my screen now. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. And you see video and content marketing on your screen? Awesome. Okay, let me just get my notes set up here. So these are just some quick stats that I brought up just to kind of reiterate what Steph was saying a little bit about video and content marketing. 80% of online marketers use video content, and that's because we're so used to seeing static images on the internet. We're bombarded with just so much information that we scroll right past them. And as Steph said before, 7 seconds is all we have to capture someone's attention. So that's why we suggest using video, and that's why you'll find that video converts again and again. So is video beneficial to your company? Steph kind of went over a little bit why it is beneficial. I think it's really about pinpointing your opportunity for video. There are different types of video that perform better in different locations of your sales funnel, just like different types of content does. So it's kind of up to you to decide if you're doing an interview, if you're doing a product video, what type of video you're doing, and then move from there. And it's just super important to remember that you want to capture your audience attention within that first 7 seconds. So when you're creating your video, you want to set your goals. So why are you using video? Well, you probably want to build brand awareness. You want to attract and delight your audience. You want to increase your campaign engagement if you're doing an ad campaign. You want to educate your prospects, and you want to increase your customer engagement. So when it comes to messaging and distribution with video, your videos can receive a massive amount of exposure when they reach beyond your YouTube channel, your website, your social media channels. Just make sure that they're all aligning with your brand. You want to kind of use your video across all platforms so that you can lead your customers through social media or whatever platform you're posting on to your website. So it'll depend on what type of video you're using as well. There are some really great options such as Facebook Live, Instagram Live, Twitter Live. It's all about what type of message you want to convey. So staying on brand is something that's really important. Branding is everything to do with your brand. And so you want to be sure that your video is on brand, no matter if you're filming with a camera, a cell phone, etc. Your logo, your voice, your tone, your color scheme, etc. are all to do with your brand. So if Evolution, for example, was going to film a video about a product, you're going to want to be sure that you have your logo in there, that the voice and tone that you're conveying in your video are the same as you would talk to someone in the store. The color scheme is the same, etc. And you want to film probably on location so that people know immediately what they're looking at. Again, voice and tone are super important because they're part of your brand. So when you're telling your story, you want to be sure that you're using your voice, so the representation of your brand's personality, and the tone, which has a little bit more wiggle room depending on your audience and subject matter. Kind of depends on what type of video you're going for, but just make sure you stay the same through the whole video and you don't kind of change around. It'll be really weird if in one scene you're doing it in an interview and then in the next scene you're just being silly and jovial and joking around. Colors. So colors are also really important. Like Steph talked about, lighting. Colors are another part of lighting. If you think about kind of a thrilling scene in a movie where, say, there's a mass murderer coming in the room, you know it's a thrilling scene because it's dark and gloomy and ominous. So if you're filming something about your product, you want to be sure that you're in a brightly lit room, you can see the product, and it accurately represents what you're showcasing. You wouldn't want to film something for Evolution or for Realtor, for example, that's super dark where people can't see what they're looking at. For those two examples, you want it to be brighter, you want it to be crisp, clean background. So color really, really plays a part in your filming. Typography, you're probably not going to use too much typography if you're doing like a cell phone video, but this is really important to remember if you're kind of doing a longer production. Just remember it has the same hierarchy as if you're doing an essay. So you're going to want to have like a title, subtitle, and then you're going to want to have the main body of the image down below. Logo usage, again, I won't really go over this too much, but just remember that be sure you're using your logos appropriately as a layover and have the right type of file. So you want to have a transparent background and you want your logo to be in one of the corners. You don't want it to be in the middle of the screen, because if I'm here talking and this is the logo in the middle, you're not going to be able to see my face. So put it in one of the top corners or the bottom corners, and then you want to use a PNG, AI, or EPS file, because all of those files have the ability to have a transparent background. If you're using a JPEG file, that is going to have a white background. Music and audio, this is really important as well. There are so many sites available for you to collect free music. YouTube is one of these options. Epidemic Sound, you can get a couple of free trials. That one does cost money eventually. And then there's also Audio Library. Remember, music, again, sets the tone. If you remember the movie Jaws, you know that a scary scene is coming and that shark is coming because of the music. So if you're selling, again, back to Evolution, if you're selling olive oil, you don't want to have like super deep, ominous music in the background. Just think about if we were watching Jaws and there was like rainbows and lollipops was the song, you'd be like, this is crazy, what's going on? This doesn't match up at all. So music kind of helps your brain follow what's going on in the scene. So just make sure that you're choosing music that is appropriate. And I would say that you should always have music, even if you're not going to use it in that one video, you might want to use it on a different platform. And music just helps to keep your audience's attention a little bit longer. Imagery, again, everything should just align with your type of brand. So if you're doing a stop motion video, props, if you're doing like a GIF, you just want to be sure that everything is aligning with your brand. I know I've kind of preached this a lot, but it just really helps your audience kind of recognize what is going on in the scene. Setting. So like I mentioned before, this is super, super important. You just want to be sure that you're giving off the correct vibe. Like I mentioned before, shooting a product in like a super dark alley probably doesn't align with your brand unless you're like street art, or if you're selling like a super cool sneaker for breakdancers. Like just make sure that it's aligning with your brand and what you're trying to sell. Again, it just helps your audience kind of follow the story, and it tells the story along with shooting the video. Actors, so if you're shooting, say I was shooting with Steph and she showed up to film something in sweatpants and a hoodie with her hair in a bun, that might be good for a yoga studio, but it's not necessarily good, for example, for Catherine, if you're shooting something for teachers or whatever. You want to look professional, you want to look reputable, and again, you want to align with your brand. The other thing I will say about actors is you don't necessarily have to hire someone to be an actor. Like, you can use your friends, you can use your family. Just make sure you write them kind of a script. And the biggest thing too important with actors nowadays and scripting is that the more authentic and off the cuff you can be with the conversation on the video, the more you're going to keep your audience's attention. It just makes you more trustworthy as a brand. And again, it's going to keep your audience there longer because they're going to be interested in what's going on.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about getting a waiver or a form when you're using actors?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was just going to say that. It was in my notes.
Oh, okay.
So if you're using one person, there's tons of contracts on the web that you can get for using one person and just get their release to use their likeness. Even if they are a friend, it's just something to cover your butt. You never know. They might see the video that you post and be like, well, I look awful. I hate that. Take it down. If you don't have a contract signed from them saying you can use their likeness, you got to take it down, and then you wasted all that time. So it doesn't matter if they're your friend, they're your family, your coworker, just make sure you get them to sign a waiver. And if you're filming outdoors, if there's more than 5 people in the shot, that's considered a group shot. And then you don't necessarily need waivers for every single person. If there's 5 people, yes, you do. If there's more than 5, you do not, because it's a group shot and it doesn't matter. There are like so many ways to get around it. Does that answer? Is that good stuff? Perfect. So there are tons of popular apps on your cell phones that you can use. I'm not 100% familiar with Android, so if you are using an Android or a Google Pixel, you'll just have to do a little bit of a Google search on what is best for you. But InShot, Filmora, Splice, and Adobe Rush are the apps that I most often use when shooting on my cell phone. If you are filming with your cell phone, there are just some things that I suggest using, and I'll go through this slowly because you're probably going to write this down. First off, make sure your camera is clean. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people try and take a video and there's like a finger smudge or dirt on the camera, and then it just looks awful. So take your case off, use a little wipe to wipe off your lens, and just make sure it's clean. Second, use a mic plugged into your phone, or use someone else's cell phone closer to your subject so that you have 2 audio files. You never know what's going to happen when you're filming a scene, so it's super important to either use a mic or use that secondary phone, because that way you can also cut out the ums, long pauses, the ands, the uhs, the stutters. You can just use those audio files and overlay them so it sounds a lot better. Next, film in landscape. So if you can see me on video right now, this is landscape and this is portrait. Portrait only works for Instagram stories, Facebook stories. So if that's what you're using your video for sure, film in portrait mode, so this way. But if you're filming a production for posting online or using on YouTube, this is the native way that you should be filming your videos. Next is I want you to go into your camera settings, not now, later on your cell phone, and I want you to turn on the grid. With that grid on your cell phone, you're gonna see some vertical lines and some horizontal lines. It's important when you're filming a subject to keep their eyes on that top horizontal line. It just looks way better unless you're doing a super close-up, then you can kind of film here. If you look at me on the screen, you can kind of film here. So keep your whole face in. And it's important to film like a couple of different angles. So film straight on, film from the side, film close up, and then you can kind of cut from scene to scene to kind of keep your audience intrigued. The last one was using a mini tripod, such as Joby from Amazon. Steph, if you want to throw that in the chat, it's Joby from Amazon. It just gives you a better handle on your cell phone rather than trying to like fumble around like this and film. It just gives you a way better handle on filming. So just some final thoughts here. They're all pretty straightforward. They might be a little bit too in-depth for you, but just remember to create engaging, colorful, high quality branded videos. You can make super high production looking videos super easily on your cell phone. It just takes practice. So I encourage you to, like, you know, be silly, go in your backyard, film the bees buzzing around the flowers, like film the trees, and just like get used to using the video editing app on your phone, because the more comfortable you get with putting videos together and the more you do them, put them together and watch them, the more you're going to learn. It's just really easy to get good at video, honestly. It's just about practice.
Awesome. Jackie, thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot and for having that presentation in your pocket and ready to go. I think it's a nice transition to actually go ahead and just switch back to, I wanted to just talk about objections really quickly, and then we'll go into questions. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna go back over here and play. Okay, so everyone sees the slide there. So on objections, okay, basically someone who's going to give you objections, they're essentially just looking for more information. So when someone gives you an objection, don't treat it as a they're not interested. Treat it as a, oh, I didn't do a good enough job giving them the information that they needed in order to make that decision. So you know, for Nicolette, for you, when someone says, oh, you know what, we're just not gonna, you know, whatever those common objections might be, again, just treat it as a opportunity to clarify and give more information.